Welcome to this first in a series of short visual podcasts where we will delve into the invention of analog photography and some of the stories of the many people that contributed to its remarkable development and success. So, what do we hope to accomplish by the end of this series? Clearly, how photography got started and evolved is important. There were many different components of photography and different disciplines of science and the arts that were involved, so we will look at how these different pieces fit together. There were at least 70 different people who had a hand in developing us from zero to the first 35 millimeter cameras. It was a bumpy road at times, and each one of these people had at least one interesting story to tell. While we tend to focus on, pun intended, what's going on in our own little bubble, we will also step back and look at what else is happening globally in the different decades as photography was advancing, as well as what was happening in both Canada and locally in the town of Milton, Ontario. Zayed Abdel Noor is a Lebanese-American Wall Street financier and philanthropist, among other things. I came across this quote from him about photography and life. He said, "Life is like photography. You need the negatives to develop." This is so very true. There were lots of negative moments in the development of photography. So with that in mind, let's get started. The word photography is derived from the Greek language, photos, meaning light, and graphos, meaning to draw. While artists used all kinds of different media to create with, photographers literally used light in order to record images of things around them. Here we have 6 fun facts about photographic images. It is estimated that there are 14.3 trillion images now in existence. 5.3 billion photos are created each day and about 61,400 images being made each second. The average person makes 20 photos a day, and there are 14 billion images being shared daily. So why are these numbers so staggering? When people are surveyed as to what their most valuable inanimate objects are, their family photographs take the number one spot. If we look at the world's population, in 2024, it reached 8.09 billion people. There are 6.84 billion smartphones with cameras around the world, and 94% of images being produced today are made using cell phones. Just before the surge in digital technology, the year 2000 saw 1 billion rolls of analog film being made. By 2010, analog film manufacturing had dropped to 10% of the amount made 10 years previously. Unless someone here is immortal, it's unlikely that any of us have any knowledge about what it was like to live in the 1820s. So I'm going to put a few things into perspective in the next few slides. The way to get around was by horse and buggy on land or by actual sailing ships over water. There were no planes, passenger trains, or automobiles. People got their news through newspapers, if they were fortunate enough to be able to read. Letters took weeks or months to arrive in the post. There was no telegraph, radio, television, or internet back then. While unions did exist, child labor was common, and people worked long hours under dangerous conditions for little pay. A cholera pandemic that started in India was raging globally at the time when urban environments were unhealthy and sewers and sewage treatment did not exist. In 1820, the global population reached 1 billion people. If we look at the curve here, you can see that things were starting to take off in an even bigger way in the 1800s when it came to population growth. We'll see in a moment how these things tie together. With regards to the number of photos being made per year, even though in 1850 millions of images were being made annually, with the advent of digital photography in 2000, there has been an exponential growth in the number of images being made. Interestingly, in 2020, with lockdowns during the pandemic, there was a noticeable dip in the number of images that were being made. That has since rebounded. If you're wondering why some in the older generations seem to get overwhelmed by things, this chart may help to explain things. Until 1700, it took 1800 years for the total sum of human knowledge to double. There were rapid advances starting to happen, and in the time frame when breakthroughs in photography were being made, the time it took for knowledge to double was about every 200 years. When I was in school, it took 10 to 20 years for knowledge to double. Today, knowledge is doubling every year, which is why it is so difficult to keep up with things. If we overlay the three curves for population growth, knowledge, doubling of, and photos made, we can see that there is a correlation. If this were a sporting event, we just got the warm-up completed, so let's get on with it. The beginnings of photography were essentially about getting this chemistry right in order to make things work. Stated another way, it was about first getting the right chemistry. There were at least 22 different photographic processes invented over the course of 90 years, and they are listed here on this chart, along with how long they lasted before being taken over by something else. Some of these are where images are actually recorded, and others are where images are printed or reproduced. It is important to say that while each of these processes had their heyday, many of these are still utilized somewhere in the world today as niche or novel photographic methods. It is said that success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. While it is politically incorrect today, essentially it was men that performed the groundwork and grunt work in order to get photography established. I'm not trying to make excuses here. Rather, I'm just reporting what was going on back in the day. The invention was also primarily driven by people of three different nationalities, with the Americans coming in afterwards to help progress the advancements along. Be sure to join us next time as we continue our journey towards the birth of analog photography. We'll specifically be talking about a Chinese connection, a papal inquisition, polymaths, Darwin's uncle, a chance meeting, and more. We look forward to you being with us.